the last 7 words of Jesus. On a day like this, over 2,000 years ago, Jesus offered up a prayer that resonates even to the contemporary times, offering to the Father a prayer that has both spiritual and psychological map of navigating the human suffering, a prayer that moves from the external world of conflict to the internal world of the soul. Number 1, he prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Compare Luke chapter 23, verse 34. It was a prayer of forgiveness and release. Jesus forgave his executioners. Jesus released them from the repercussive effect of their actions. In this prayer, Jesus refused to play the role of the victim. He refused to play the card of the injured party. By this very act, Jesus demonstrates cognitive reframing, viewing his executioners through the lens of their ignorance rather than the lens of malice. By this prayer, he establishes grace as the ultimate reality, suggesting that love is not contingent on human worthiness. And Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Number 2, Jesus prayed, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Compare Luke chapter 23, verse 43. This was a prayer of hope. This was a prayer of compassion. This man was hanging with his own guilt and deep regret of his actions. This man was face to face with reality. This man was face to face with the evil he escaped all through his life. But today, it was the day of reckoning. It was a day to die. But something profound happened. He was plunged into the depths of metanoia, a firm purpose of amendment, and so, staring into the emptiness that the death anxiety brings, he prayed, "Lord, remember me when you enter into your kingdom." Jesus, in response, offered help, offered hope, and offered compassion. He said, "Brother, you are not alone, because today you will be with me in paradise." A significance that spiritual journey with Christ is not too late, and that divine response to honest vulnerability and brokenness is immediate. And Jesus answered, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Number 3, Jesus said, "Mother, behold your son. Son, behold your mother." Compare John chapter 19, verse 26 to 27. This was about grief management. This was about connection. This was about continuity. Jesus, who had earlier said to us, "I will not leave you like orphans," thought about us this very moment of excruciating pain and reflected, if they go through this pain alone, it will be overwhelming for them. And so he said to John and to us, "Behold your mother." His mother once said, "Hence all generations shall call me blessed." Compare Luke chapter 1, verse 48. Jesus knew that if he dies without proper handover, his mother might be isolated. His mother might be neglected. His mother might be rejected and cajoled. Desirous that this mother be honored and respected, he said to John and to us, "Behold your mother." Jesus knew the pain of childlessness. He knew the pain of mothers who have lost their children. He raised the daughter of Jairus, the synagogue official. Compare Mark chapter 5, 21 to 24. At the funeral procession, he raised the only son of the widow. Luke chapter 7, from verse 11 to 17. That his mother may not be without a child and children, he said to John and to us, "Behold your mother," and "Mother, behold your son." Number 4, Jesus prayed, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Matthew chapter 27, verse 44. It was a prayer of anguish. It was the peak of his earthly existential crisis. It was a prayer that validates Jesus' feelings of loneliness, abandonment, and spiritual anguish. It was dark night of the soul. It was a night that Jesus, as man, stares into the dark and witnessed the emptiness that shrouded the deep recesses of the night. But Jesus had earlier said, "I am not alone, because the Father is with me." John chapter 16, verse 32. In this prayer, Jesus bridges the gap between total despair and traditional songs of lamentation and complaints, showing that God is present even in the feeling of God's absence. And he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Number 5, Jesus said, "I thirst." Compare John 19, verse 28. This was a prayer of vulnerability. This was a prayer of desire. Jesus physically and mentally drained of energy coming from the meditative moments of agony in the garden, the overwhelming emotions of dread and anxiety, the excruciating pain from the scourges and the weight of the cross, made one final request from you and me: I thirst. It was a thirst coming from vulnerability. It was a thirst searching for lost souls. It was a desire looking for fulfillment. It was a thirst that focuses on the most basic human needs, grounding the spiritual experience in physical reality. This thirst suggests that God continues to thirst for humanity, just as humanity thirsts for God. And Jesus said, I thirst. Number 6, Jesus said, it is finished. Compare John 19, verse 30. This suggests integration of efforts. This proclaims achievement. Jesus, in realization that all that needs to be done for the effectiveness of man's salvation were already made, that the Father's will has come to fruition on earth as already made in heaven, that goal having been scored, that crown awaits, said, it is finished. This marks the end of the old order. A new order starts. It was not a cry of defeat. It was a cry of mission accomplished, indicating that the bridge between God and man is now fully established. And he said, it is finished. The 7th one, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Compare Luke chapter 23, verse 46. It was a prayer of ultimate trust. It was a prayer of total surrender. Jesus, having transitioned from desire to doing, from effort to rest, and salvific work of man having been accomplished, totally surrendered to the Father with ultimate trust, allowed the Spirit to rest secure in the bosom of the Father, allowed the inevitable and rests in the larger reality, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Luke chapter 23, verse 46. This models the final return. Yes, it is the final return. The journey that began with the Father, the first word, ends with the Father. Thus, Jesus completed the cycle with utmost trust and total surrender to the Father. And he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.